Thomas Treiber. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the time has arrived for Inside Boxing Weekly. So here are your hosts, Mike Goodpaster, John Einreinhofer, and Jeremiah Priesser on the Grueling Truth Sports Network.
Welcome, everybody, to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. Inside Boxing Weekly is brought to you by the Retired Boxers Foundation. Make sure you go out, check out the Facebook page. Alex Ramos, Jackie Richardson, great organization, so make sure you check them out on Facebook. I am your host for Inside Boxing Weekly, Mike Goodpaster. Right now, I want to welcome in one of my co-hosts, Jeremiah Priesser. How you doing, Jeremiah?
I am doing very, very well, and I just wanted to add one tidbit that you can find the interview with Alex Ramos on the page, on the Grueling Truth page, so go check that out as well. Let's get it going, guys.
Yeah, and you can also check out interviews with George Foreman, Deontay Wilder, Larry Holmes, and I only mentioned Deontay Wilder with Holmes and Foreman because, of course, our co-host, John Einreinhofer, is the head of the Deontay Wilder fan club. How you doing, John?
Good to be here, Mike, and I'm glad you like my Holmes-Wilder comparison and put them in the same
it's
sentence.
Still stupid, but we'll leave that for later because we have a special guest tonight, and that would be the ring announcer from Belfast, Ireland this past week, Thomas Treiber. How you doing, Thomas?
I'm doing great, guys. Great to be back with you, and still reeling from all the excitement this past weekend. What an amazing crowd, 25,000 fans. It just doesn't get much better.
Yeah, and I saw your interview with Tyson Fury, and I would like to say that the body shots you took from him were much harder than the ones Sefer took, and you did not stop.
Well, I'm telling you, I got abs of steel. A lot of people don't know what's under that tux.
Did you ever think about maybe just cracking him with a left hook just to see if he could take a punch?
Yeah, but, man, I really hate to lose this job. This is the best job I've ever had.
Yeah, but you never know. Treiber Fury 2 could do huge box office numbers if you could have dropped him.
That's true. Man, gosh, darn it. Another missed opportunity.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about it. Talk about the atmosphere of Belfast, Northern Ireland. Of course, Tyson Fury had a visitor there to watch him fight Deontay Wilder. So what was the atmosphere like, especially, the weigh in and everything that kind of surrounded that?
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate on this one to be there the whole week because they had me host a public workout. That's where I took the body shots. That was on a Wednesday. Thursday, we had the press conference. Friday was the weigh-in, and that was the first time that, we got to see Deontay Wilder, who appeared right there stage side before Fury got on the scale. And I think the world has seen the footage of Tyson's father, John, really having some heated words with Deontay and getting very animated. I was actually elbow to elbow with John Fury, and I was actually fearing that I was going to be, bumped off the stage. He was so hyped up. But just really amazing. I mean, you can really get a feel for how huge this fight is going to be when they finally meet up.
Yeah, and also, before we get that, we'll talk a little bit about the Fury fight here in a second. You want to talk a little bit about the undercard? We had Paddy Barnes fought for the WBC World Flyweight title. I think that may have been a case of maybe throwing him in there a little bit too soon.
Yeah, and that was kind of my concern. I had spoken with a few people involved with the putting together the fights, and but they felt like that there was really no downside to him getting in there with this opportunity. They kind of felt that this was a world champion that he could beat, and it was a calculated risk. And truly, I mean, until he got hit with that body shot, he was hanging in there very well. He was, a lot of good toe-to-toe action. And unfortunately for Paddy Barnes, it was one of those paralyzing body shots, and he just couldn't continue. But that was our TV opener for the WBC Flyweight World Championship, and Paddy Barnes being a 3-time Olympian. And that's the other reason, and if people don't know his amateur pedigree, he competed in 3 Olympics. He's a 2-time bronze medalist. When you have that type of amateur background, you could maybe add about, and I know you can't compare an amateur to a professional fight, but I think you could add on another 5 or 7 fights to somebody's professional record if they had that type of amateur record. But the stars did not line up for him that night, and he's a great guy, and I'm sure that he'll continue to move down the right road. But that was our TV opener.
Yeah, and Jeremiah, you're a huge Lomachenko fan. And don't you think maybe the success that guys like Lomachenko have maybe spurred guys to maybe take risks they wouldn't normally take?
Yeah, I do. I think his, just as quickly as he's been able to move up and move through the ranks, a lot of guys see that and model themselves after that. And, of course, like anything, we've had mixed results. I mean, you've seen, guys like Usyk move up quickly to, with good success. But, of course, on the flip side, you had the Patty Barnes thing, and you also had the who was the Chinese guy that we saw in his second fight try to grab, some alphabet trinket? Zhu might have been his name. I can't remember now, but he was also stopped. Again, so it's kind of a mixed bag here. I know there have been a number of Japanese fighters who have done it, and guys like Inoue have passed with flying colors, but some guys have not. And you get the sense with the Patty Barnes fight is that this was a big homecoming for him. And when he was dropped with a body shot by Rosales, who's proved to be quite good. I mean, he upset Haiga in a fight that few thought he would win. But Rosales is one of those guys that you look at his record and you don't think there's anything special there. But like a lot of guys from south of the United States border, they don't have strong amateur backgrounds like the Irish or the English or the Ukrainians, the Russians, et cetera, et cetera. So they got to come up the hard way, and a lot of times it can be deceiving. I mean, you look at his record, and he had a 4-round decision loss early in his career, but the guy's proven to be pretty damn good. And when he connected with that body shot to Patty Barnes, not only was the air taken out of Patty, but the entire crowd and the commentators alike were just quiet.
Yeah. But the one thing we got to give him, John, and we've talked about this before, at least he took a chance, and a lot of these guys will fight 20 or 30 no-hopers before they do anything. So I will give him that. He took a chance. It didn't work out, but you still have to admire the guy for that.
Yeah, I agree with that, Mike. I think as we look to boxing's future, I think one of the things that might be able to be addressed is the fact that you really don't need the 10 or 20 fights with the no-hopers. What's it really prove? Some of these guys, I mean,
but
most of these no-hopers are not.
Depends more on what kind of amateur pedigree you had. Because if you get a guy that maybe only had a handful of amateur fights, which we've had on here before, and they became world champions down the road, I think that it would be probably a little too much. I think the best way to go for a guy with a short amateur career is probably that way. But a guy like this, I mean, you might as well take a shot at it.
My thinking would be, and I've thought about this issue because I think it's a way that maybe in this modern era we can make boxing better and possibly draw in more fans. My thinking would be that the fighters that really don't have an amateur background, which of course you have those, that they would be paired against each other earlier in their career. In other words, a guy who's 0-0, who didn't have much of an amateur career, he fights another guy who's 0-0, who didn't have much of an amateur career. And these guys that have had extensive amateur careers, we get away from this thing where they've got to fight 20 no-hopers, guys who aren't even full-time fighters, and half of them are just falling down. What's that really do for the fans or the guys coming up? It's just time wasters. So I'm not against seeing these types of things, even when they haven't always been successful. I think sometimes that might end up being just how good that person taking the quick step up is really. So I'm generally in favor of things moving in that direction.
All right, next up, Thomas. Carl Frampton, Luke Jackson. The atmosphere had to be great for Frampton, a really good fighter. WBO World Featherweight title, beat Luke Jackson. Jackson really hadn't fought the kind of competition to, I think, maybe warrant this fight, but he showed a lot of heart, and he is a talented guy.
Oh, absolutely. Olympian from Australia, so another guy with that strong amateur pedigree. and only 16 fights under his belt. Maybe actually 17. I think he was 16 and was he 16-1 maybe?
Yeah, I think it was 16 wins.
Yeah, but boy, I'll tell you what, Carl was just spectacular from the moment he walked out of the tunnel. I've never heard a crowd pop the way he did when his music hit and he came out. It was like I was at a live concert and the music fans were going crazy. So for me, another, monumental moment in the ring wearing the tux. I'll never forget it. Can't wait now, and not to jump too far ahead, but I can't wait to do the Frampton-Warrington fight, which looks to be happening in December. But let's get back to this past Saturday. And, Luke Jackson, gutsy guy, never stopped. But Frampton showed his experience and just broke him down. And, you could see because the corner ultimately threw the towel in for the referee to wave it off. But Carl did exactly what he had to do. And, a lot of people were thinking, if he didn't get past this fight, maybe it's over for him. But I think he proved that there's still more left in the tank, and he could very well be winning another world title if he fights Josh Warrington in December, which I can't see not happening. Both fighters promoted by Frank Warren. And I'm not sure if the ink's dried on that yet, but it sounds like it's going to happen. So very impressed with what Carl did this past weekend.
So what you're telling me is there are promoters that will put their two fighters together and let them fight each other. It doesn't happen.
Oh, absolutely. And, well, Bob Arum does that. Top Rank is known for doing that as well. And, when you've got that fight where the fans want to see it and you happen to promote both fighters, I think it's a win-win for the promoter. And, that's what's going to happen here. And I think the rumblings are maybe like around a week before Christmas time, somewhere in that range. And I'm not sure of the exact location, but with the following Josh Warrington has in Leeds, England, the following that Carl has in Belfast, my goodness, this is going to be epic.
All right. John, what's your take on Frampton-Jackson, and what's your take on a possible Frampton-Warrington?
I think the positive of it for me is that I would have never thought I'd be saying it a year ago, but I'm starting to get the sense now that Warrington-Frampton's going to be a better fight than I thought it would be. Warrington, not a big puncher, but he's aggressive and he throws a lot of punches. And Frampton's a little bit, at times, a little too selective for me. He's a good fighter, but I'm starting to get a feeling that his high water mark was the first Santa Cruz fight, and he did what he had to do getting Jackson out of there. But let's be blunt. Jackson wasn't really much resistance, but I think it was good that he scored the knockout. I think it's a very good fight. I think Frampton's still one of the top featherweights in the world. I don't see any kind of a dramatic decline or something like that, but I think I might just see a little bit of a little bit of a slippage in the last 3 fights or so. That I think him and Warrington's going to be a better fight than I expected, and I think that's good for the fans around the world and in the UK, because I think instead of this fight maybe just being a big UK spectacle, I think it's going to be a good fight now. I think it's going to be a closer fight than I would have thought. It may come down to when Frampton is, being selective with his punches and countering, can he put enough hurt on Warrington to bust him up a little bit and discourage him? But and that might come down to how well Warrington turns out to take in with a better puncher, because we know Lee Selby's not a puncher. So I think it's become a more interesting fight than I would have suspected, and I'm looking forward to it a little more than I would have suspected.
All right, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I actually think this turned out much better than we planned, because, most people thought Lee Selby was going to beat Warrington, and then, maybe you would get something like a domestic showdown with Selby and Frampton, but we didn't get that. And stylistically, that's better for all of us. I mean, Warrington proved himself, by going out and beaten clear enough a top 5 featherweight in Lee Selby. And so he's certainly earned his spot. It's going to sell well. And like John said, stylistically, it's going to be more appealing. I mean, Warrington's he's not only a busybody, but he's a bit longer than Carl Frampton, who does have short arms. So I'm looking forward to the fight myself. But I want to, touch on Frampton's performance as well. As I was happy with what he went out there and did. I mean, he showed that he had, he was intimidated. He was not intimidated at all by his power. He just went out, banged to the body really, really well. I loved his diversity in that regard. I mean, he was not only throwing, left hooks to the body, but right hooks to the body. He was doing, a little bit of that Mickey Ward action where he touched you to the head and then banged the hook to the body. And obviously, that helped put him away. But I liked what I saw in there. I mean, again, it's kind of tough to tell, what exactly he's got until he fights an upper echelon type guy. But I like what I saw. I mean, he went out and did what he was supposed to do. And I've always been a fan of Frampton, and I'd like to see him run a gauntlet. And I think potentially he could do it. I'd like to see him fight Warrington. I would favor him against Warrington. If he gets past Warrington, with the alphabet stuff, he'd be number 1 for Oscar Valdez. I think he could take Valdez as well. And, I know we'd all like to see the third Santa Cruz fight as well. The second fight probably should have been in Belfast, Ireland. It seems like he kind of got the short end of the stick in terms of negotiations there. But, I'd love to see it. I mean, I think there's a lot of potential there. And I know I brought this up not that long ago, but I think if he were to, overcome Warrington, overcome Valdez, and potentially Santa Cruz, if Santa Cruz has not fought Gary Russell Jr. by then, if he overcomes, guys who are seen as 3 top 5 featherweights, I think he would have a decent case of being greater than Barry McGuigan.
All right.
Wow.
Go ahead. Who was going to say something?
No, I was just going to say that. Boy, that was a great breakdown. Really liked the way you painted the picture with everything.
Yeah.
Hey, thanks. And real quick, Thomas, I did want to ask you since you chimed in terms of in terms of the electricity and who they were rooting for, were the fans generally more positive towards Carl Frampton? I mean, was a lot of that energy directed to him as well, or was it really Fury? I mean, was there a big difference there, or were they just on board with both guys?
Well, I think that, Frampton is their boy. I mean, he's from Belfast. This was what he dreamed about his entire career, was fighting at Windsor Park, which is the home to his favorite soccer team. I mean, there's no doubt that this was truly Carl's night. But with that said, Fury has become very loved by the boxing fans in the UK and especially in Northern Ireland and the Irish fans. So it was just a really perfect marriage of having both of them on the card. So it was really a combination of both, but no mistaking, this was truly Carl's night. And, he got to live out his dream.
All right, and we'll talk about Tyson Fury, who won a unanimous 10-round decision, basically a shutout, against Francesco Pianetta. Did I get that right?
That was perfect. I'm very impressed.
See, this is the thing. Last week...
It's almost like you speak Italian.
You think so? Because actually I'm part Italian, so that would make sense why I can say Pianetta. I'm coming after your job, Thomas. I've been practicing a lot, and I can't help it. It's just I'm going to do it. So
I'm going to put my tuxedos on eBay after this. It's over.
From Men's Warehouse.
Men's Warehouse.
Yeah. But yeah, last week I refused to call him anything but Francesco Piñata. And
it was intentional. It wasn't accidental.
Yeah, it was intentional. But also, it took me another week to figure out how to say his last name. So I figured I would do that, and John would just think I was joking. But I wasn't real sure. But see, I heard the best ring announcer there is out there pronounce it. And that's why I knew how to say it.
Oh, now you're winning points.
There you go. That's what I want to do. But when you look at this, you talked about Fury Wilder. Is there any real animosity between these guys? Because both of these guys seem like good-natured guys. I know that they both say crazy out-of-the-way things every once in a while, but it seems to me like these guys might actually like each other a little bit.
Yeah, I get a sense of that as well. And, I mean, I think they both respect each other. And I think they both know how to hype up a fight and make no mistake about it. I mean, these guys know there's a lot at stake. But I think when it's all said and done, we'll probably see these two guys, having a beer together. But up until then, I think it's going to be one heck of a circus before that fight happens. And I'm really glad that it's happening. Maybe I would have liked to have seen Fury get one more fight under his belt, but I think it's one of those situations where the timing is just so right. And we're going to see this before the end of the year.
Yeah, they're basically taking advantage of Anthony Joshua. They can make a bunch of money together, and then one of them will get to make a bunch of money with Joshua next year, hopefully.
That's definitely something that could be down the line for sure.
Yeah, and when we look at the fight, I'll start off with John first. The only thing that disturbed me was this. Everybody said that Tyson Fury didn't look that. Tyson Fury looked like Tyson Fury looks to me, which is he is, I won't say safety first, but it kind of is. He puts on a little bit of a show. I don't think he took Pianeta real seriously. The only thing I would have liked to see is when you get to the 6th or 7th round, just put the guy away, because I'm pretty sure he could have.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's not Tyson Fury. And if you've watched a lot of his early fights, he wins rounds. And yes, he is a guy who, likes to move around and be very defensive. And it's not always the most fan-friendly type of action. But, with who Fury is in there with, that's the type of fighter you're going to get Fury in there with. You're going to see a different type of Fury when he's in the ring with Wilder. With Pianeta, I think he felt like, look, I've got this fight under control. I don't need to take any unnecessary risks. Of course, being a heavyweight fight, we all want to see that heavyweight come out and just land those massive shots and knock a guy out. But the bottom line is he won every round. Pianeta, a big guy, a former world title challenger, is he at the level of a top heavyweight? No. But, again, this was Fury's only second fight back after an almost 3-year layoff. He got in better shape from his fight June 8th in Manchester, dropped another 20 pounds or so. So you could see that he's continuing to go down the right road. And I'm glad that Fury got some rounds. I mean, it's really important for a guy who has not fought in that long of a time to get some rounds in there. And I think he did a very nice job of winning every round and putting himself now in this position with Wilder.
Okay, same question, John.
Yeah, I wanted to I agree with you, Mike, in the sense of it's funny. That was also actually something I agree with, an impression I got. Being fair to Tyson Fury, I'm not going to claim, that was a 2.5-year layoff. I'm not going to claim that doesn't hurt him. That's going to hurt any fighter. But with that understood, I think really what we saw Saturday, that kind of looks like Fury to me. I think it's really what, and like Thomas is saying, I think it's really kind of what he brings to the table. I think against Wilder, he'll even be more defensive. One thing about the relationship with these two guys, it's been talked about before, it's known, but surprisingly with what's coming up, I haven't heard it talked about lately. Remember when these guys were both very young fighters, they went and trained with Emmanuel Stewart as well as Robert Helenius also did. And Emmanuel Stewart had liked all three of them. Of course, Helenius has tailed off, but Emmanuel Stewart knowing the box. Yeah, but Emmanuel Stewart knowing boxing the way he does, he was predicting big things for Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury as well, and all these years later, and Emmanuel Stewart no longer with us, but here it is, Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury about to face off in a huge fight. But I thought Fury kind of looks like Fury does. But I think against Wilder, you'll get more of the Klitschko Fury, where he's going to be even much more defensive and just trying to lean back and avoid shots. One thing that actually encouraged me away about this fight coming up, people understand there's at least a scenario there where it could be a defensive fight like that, but people are still looking forward to it because of, what can be brought in the promotion, especially by Tyson Fury. Let's face it, the guy's a great promoter. Thomas was in there for this, and one of the things I was wondering how it seemed live is, Fury was great with the line right after the fight, which everybody kept quoting, where he grabbed the mic and said, "They called and I answered," and he was already throwing shade on Joshua successfully, as far as I'm concerned. Anthony Joshua, I think, and Eddie Hearn definitely outsmarted themselves, and Joshua was fading into the background, at least temporarily, by the day. And, when Fury gets into full-out promotional mode and you've got Wilder there who's knocked out every man he's fought, and I think Wilder will be aggressive in that fight, and he'll try to get after Fury, and we'll see how it plays out with Fury's defense. But everybody seems to be looking forward to the fight, and at the very, very least, with the promotional ability of Tyson Fury and, Deontay Wilder seems to pretty much hold people's interest as well. You got a good promotion coming up. Universally, everybody seems to be looking forward to the fight, at the very least, the promotion. So I think Fury did what he needed to do. He won. He wasn't in there with resistance, let's be honest, but he kind of looked like Fury.
Well, I would look forward to it if I thought Wilder was going to be aggressive and come at him, but I don't think he's going to do that. Jeremiah?
Well, I think John is right. I mean, I think most people should be looking forward to the fight. I mean, even if you strip away the promotional ability, and there's no doubt that Tyson Fury is the best shit talker above maybe in the sport. I mean, the guy really can sell a fight. He's quick. He kind of reminds me, whenever you get the guys from, either Great Britain or Ireland, they're generally good crap talkers because
they're in pubs.
Right, yeah, they're always taking the piss out of each other in pubs, and you refine your skills over time. Americans are a bit more sensitive, and when you start making fun of people, they start telling you to cool it down and whatnot. But no, even if you strip away the talking abilities of Fury and Wilder, and you just get down to the fundamental level, these are two guys that are some of the best heavyweights in the world, and that in itself should be at least good enough to pay attention to. I mean, really, with the recent matchmaking in the heavyweight division, it's all been pretty good with Takam and Chisora and Parker and White and all these other guys. They've been doing a good job. So this is just, again, it's kind of in the line of all that. And so I'm like everybody. I'm looking forward to the fight. Tyson Fury especially, I'm going to be looking forward to his sound bites. He'll give us plenty. And it's going to be stateside. That's pretty cool too. I mean, and I live in Denver, Colorado, so I may end up going and watching that one. It's a 2-hour flight for me. So I'm looking forward to it. How the fight plays out. I'm not exactly sure yet. We'll see. But, Fury's going in the right direction in terms of his health, in terms of his body weight. And we know Wilder doesn't seem to have much trouble with that. So, I'm looking forward to it.
All right, Thomas, it was great to have you on again.
Gentlemen, what a pleasure. Really a good time as always, recapping. I always appreciate the opportunity to come on the show. Always looking forward to it when I get back to the States here. And let's do it again real soon. My next trip will be October 6th, as I'll be heading there for Davis versus Catterall, Jack Catterall, O'Hara Davis. And that's going to be in Leicester, England. So just super excited to get back out there in October. I get to get my sleep back in order here for about a month and a half before I head back over there. But really, really appreciate it and hope we can do it again soon.
All right, Thomas.
All right.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Thomas.
We're going to let Thomas go. We'll come back and we'll talk about the past weekend's fight, the fights coming up, and we'll talk a little bit more about Wilder Fury right after this message. Replenishing Technologies helps athletes of all levels train, recover, and perform at their absolute best. We do this by offering the PEMF 120, the world's leading pulsed electromagnetic field therapy device. Workouts, injury, and stress cause cells to lose their natural power. PEMF works like a battery charger, helping cells regain the power needed to dump toxins, take in oxygen and nutrients, and repair. 95% of athletes report less pain, increased range of motion, more energy, and they simply feel better after using PEMF 120. If you'd like to count yourself among that group, contact us at www.replenishingtechnologiesinc.com. Welcome back to Inside Boxing Weekly on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm Mike Goodpaster, of course, with Jeremiah Priesser, John Einreinhofer, probably my two closest friends in the whole world. I love them both a whole bunch.
Love you.
Right. I was just kidding. You sounded creepily weird. Don't you think he sounded creepily weird when he said that back to me, John?
Yeah, I was just too busy thinking, we have to be friends because there's not many people in the world that watch all these fights and would have that in common. You're dealing with small amounts of people.
Rare breed.
All right, so let's talk about a couple fights from this last week. We've got Jesse Hart, who came out and did what he's supposed to do. He took a guy who was a lesser fighter, knocked him out in 3 rounds, Mike Goodpaster. Super middleweight fight. It looks like Jesse Hart may get another shot at the title. What was your take on Jesse, John?
Well, I think what you said, Mike, what I liked about Jesse is I wanted to just compare since they were all Saturday, and I think it's a good illustration. I think, quite frankly, Carl Frampton against Luke Jackson wasn't really in with any resistance. Tyson Fury against Pianetta was not really in with any resistance, and Jesse Hart with Mike Kravansky was not really in with any resistance. But you saw Jesse Hart mentality-wise, and that's where you might almost have different boxing cultures and things like that. Of course, his father, Eugene Cyclone Hart, the Philadelphia left hook middleweight legend from the Hagler era. Hart was just trying to get Kravansky out of there and looked like it. And it's not that he was in a 50-50 fight or something like that. But like you said, he did what he was supposed to do. And I think boxing fans like to see that. I actually did like the British commentary a bit in the Fury fight, referencing the fans in the United States, where they correctly said that, Klitschko had some trouble gaining popularity in the States because he had gotten overcautious, and that, when fans would get restless sometimes with what's Fury doing, and they were saying it was, like American fans, but that's true. I mean, boxing in the professional ranks, at least the way the Americans have always looked at it, you need knockouts to market yourself. There are a few exceptions you can come up with, but just getting to, if you want to take something out of Jesse Hart and Mike Kravansky, it would be that if you're on national TV, at least, and you got an overmatched guy, at least try to look good and get him out of there. And I think Jesse Hart did that, and maybe that gives us a little more interest in seeing him in there again, if it's going to be on regular ESPN with Gilberto Ramirez.
All right, what was your take, Jeremiah?
Well, pretty much John's take. I mean, to his credit, to Hart's credit, like his father, his left hook was working pretty good. I mean, he's not the hitter his father is, but, he's got enough pop. He got the guy out of there. If you're a fan of boxing and, you like rematches, I mean, the Gilberto Ramirez, Jesse Hart fight, the first one wasn't bad. I mean, it was the most competitive fight that Ramirez has ever had. So, if Ramirez is going to keep taking on this sort of opposition and not really the top guys, it is what it is at this point. I don't mind it so much. I'm not in love with it, but, because of the way Hart's been going about his business, he's scored 3 knockouts in a row since losing that fight.
Does that make it more or less likely that he gets a rematch with Gilberto?
Well, with all the alphabet stuff, unfortunately, it is a thing in boxing. Technically, he is the mandatory for Ramirez. He's been the mandatory for Ramirez for a little while now. So, it's probably going to happen. Again, I'm not in love with it, but I'm just acknowledging the reality of the situation. But I'm rooting for Hart because when you watch a guy like Gilberto Ramirez, and I don't hate the guy, I don't have that much against him. But when you watch exactly when you watch him fight soft touch after soft touch, or guys who are they're like 40th, 50th, 60th, 100th in the world, and I look at Jesse Hart and the guy looks like he wants it. I just kind of want to see Gilberto Ramirez upset there, but it'll be a decent scrap.
All right, Bryant Jennings, KO 9 over Alexander Dimitrenko. How'd I do on that one?
They did all right. It wasn't a bad fight. So, yeah, I mean, it was all right.
I
mean,
just
it wasn't
meant my pronunciation of Dimitrenko.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I think you really have been going to the footage and studying before you've been hopping on. So
not really.
Kudos to you.
I think that I'm just getting better.
Yeah, no, that's what I figured.
So
but when
what was your take on Jennings? I think is Jennings a top 10 heavyweight?
Yeah, he is. I think.
I agree.
I think he's in the bottom part of it. He's not with his recent opposition. Again, he's not like. How often do we say that in boxing? Jesus, I mean. With his recent opposition, it's not really all that special, but he's been doing a good job of building his brand and getting back in there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some shot at, a higher top ranked guy, like even, I don't know, Joseph Parker, Andrew Ruiz, one of those two guys. That wouldn't surprise me, because it just seems like even with all the trinkets that there are today, it all seems kind of muddied. It's like Povetkin's getting a shot, and Fury is now in the mix, and then. Dillian White is up there waiting, and then you got the Kubrat Pulev, Huey Fury thing going on. So I'm not even sure that Jennings would get a shot in a timely fashion. So, if Top Rank's smart, I think they do throw him in with a guy like Andy Ruiz or, somebody like that to keep him busy and see what he's really got.
I would think he would have a chance to win those fights.
I do too. I agree. I don't think Jennings ever going to be the top guys, but yeah, Ruiz and him, I think that'd be a good fight, and it's easy to make.
All right, John?
Yeah, I agree with Jeremiah's analysis. I think the way this maybe plays out for Jennings, and I agree with both of you, for me, he's just a guy, he just teeters into the top 10, in the current state of the heavyweight division. He's just about there, just touching on the edges of the top 10. You got a lot going on with Fury Wilder, and then of course you got the winner of that. Everybody's going to be talking about fighting Joshua, assuming he gets by Povetkin. So Jennings is going to have some waiting because it's a promotional. It's not like some fans who don't follow this stuff don't realize. You got promotional things anyway. Jennings is with Top Rank, so for him to get in with one of those guys is going to be difficult. So I feel like Jeremiah. I think maybe if he has another fight with the caliber of opposition like he's been in with, but then the Top Rank gets at least a little more creative and gets him in with a Ruiz or a Parker. And then if he comes out of that, then when the dust settles with everybody else, maybe by biding his time and let's face it, I mean, Top Rank does have the ESPN deal. You put a guy like Jennings on regular ESPN in the United States, and you get a few appearances like that, you can build up some demand for yourself, and maybe, let's say it could really with a Jennings be 2 years down the road. Maybe 2 years down the road, a few ESPN appearances later, and he gets by a Ruiz or a Parker. Maybe he can work himself into one of the bigger names, and that could be his last hurrah type of a thing. Not impossible, and I think that's always what Bob Arum. He's always since his glory days, of course, when he had Ali, and then Don King took over the heavyweight division, so to speak. Bob Arum would sign a heavyweight here or there and kind of do that. I mean, that's actually his MO. In other words, he just kind of keeps his one heavyweight on the fringes and builds them up enough that his heavyweight gets the one big fight. In other words, he's not carrying a lot of heavyweights to fight each other. He hasn't since the Ali days. So that would fit his MO, and that's kind of the way I see it going with Jennings if he can keep winning. But this did what, 680,000 or something. When you consider the headliner was Jennings, Dmitrienko, and it started past 10 o'clock in the East, and it was an East Coast fight. I thought it was a good showing for East Coast boxing, and Jennings, it's HBO-type numbers, but again, starting past 10 o'clock on the East Coast with the level of fights they had, not all that bad, and probably something ESPN will look on and Top Rank as they can build on a little bit, and Jennings is kind of their heavyweight right now. So I think we're going to see more of them.
All right, let's go ahead and look at the fights coming up this week. We got Friday night at Minneapolis, Minnesota. We got Fox Sports 1. We got Jamal James is fighting on the card, Willie Monroe Jr., Caleb Truax. But the problem is, and we've talked about this before, John, I don't think there's too many competitive fights on this card.
Yeah, this has been the thing with PBC. I think that their FS1 series overall has been underrated, where they've had a lot of good matchmaking and a lot of competitive fights where you've even had some surprises, but good action competitive fights. But then I'd say like 1 out of every 3, they'll throw in something like this where, they just signed Willie Monroe, PBC did. So, he was going to headline against Aleem, but Aleem did tweet out just a couple of days ago, and we all like the way Aleem fights. He really gives an honest effort comes to fight. He said he's got a personal medical issue, and he had to pull out. And then literally, this is the third opponent. It's going to be Javier Fortuna now, apparently. Literally, I think just today that they came up with Fortuna for Monroe. And Monroe's not a puncher anyway, so that's not too good. Jamal James, like the way he's come on, but again, unknown opposition. And Caleb Truax, coming off the 2 competitive fights with the Gale. He's also in against, and he's developed somewhat of a following. He's an interesting story, but he's against, non-competitive opposition as well.
You can't pronounce the guy's name, can you, John? Just admit it.
I'm forgetting who it was now. I know that the guy.
No, you're not.
I know that Truax.
His first name is spelled Diuhl, and then his last name is Olguin.
All I looked at was the odds, and I saw Truax as a minus 2,000 favorite, and that's all I needed to look at.
That's not big enough.
Yeah, I mean, that it's really, you do hate to see this kind of a thing on national TV when it's just all non-competitive fights. So that's the stuff to me doesn't help. I criticize Top Rank when they do that. I like a lot that PBC's done.
Actually, now Truax is fighting Fabiano Pena. There you go.
That's right.
I think I said that right. That's pretty good.
He's the one that Truax is a minus 2,000 favorite.
And it's still not enough. Did you want to comment on this at all, Jeremiah?
Yeah, I mean, I like the fact that.
It's up to you.
No, I mean, I do like the fact that they're keeping it local. You got to give them credit for that. I mean, if you're putting on a card in Minnesota and you want the best Minnesotans, topping the bill, hey, good. You got Truax. Yeah, exactly. They missed out on that one now. But, they did a good job. I mean, a lot of mismatches, but, some of these guys, Jamal James is still working his way up, and, Truax kind of needs the fight to kind of get back in the groove of things. I'm sure he'll get another fight, granted he wins, but, no, it's good. A lot of local talent, that's fine. But not a lot to talk about in terms of competitiveness.
All right.
I think Truax and James are still viable, so that makes it interesting, but it's just not competitive matchups.
All right, next up we got Saturday night, ESPN Deportes also. At Glendale, Arizona, we got Isaac Dogbo versus Hidenori Otake. Otake? I don't know. I missed that one probably. What do you think about Dogbo against Otake, Jeremiah?
Well, I'm not particularly familiar with Dogbo's opponent, and it's kind of hard to follow the guys from the Far East. It's just one of those things where, as an American, we've got a preference for bigger fellas, and it's hard to make time to catch some of these Japanese guys. But from my understanding, the guy's 37 years old, so. As a guy who's, only 122 pounds, he's got to be past his prime or, on his way out. From his ranking, he looks like a fringe guy. He's strung together a couple of nice wins. I mean, his only problem is his last significant fight. Well, his last significant fight, I guess, was the Hinata Murata fight where he actually won. That was considered a minor upset. That's actually, I think, one of the fights that I was thinking of when we were talking about Patty Barnes and how a lot of these guys are moving up quickly, guys who have had strong amateur experience. So he had a minor upset against Murata, so he can't be terrible. But my guess is that he's going to put up a competitive, like a lot of these Japanese guys who've come over in recent years. The guy that fought Sergey Lipinets, go as far as back as when Omar Figueroa fought, can't remember the name, escapes me now, but a lot of these guys come over, and it's kind of like the Koreans in the 80s, at least the guys that they're bringing over. They're tough, they're not particularly big punchers, but they're competitive, they'll give you rounds, and they'll make it semi-exciting, so that's what I expect in this one. Dogbo should take the win. Where he goes from here, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Magdaleno rematch is in tow.
All right. John?
Yeah, I agree with Jeremiah. 37-year-old, 122-pound guy, not good. Dog Bay had a great comeback performance against Magdaleno, sprung the upset where he just pounded the body, stayed committed, and that made the difference in the end. And he got a huge win there. This is a breather-type fight. I'm interested. It looks like I just saw Magdaleno commenting within the last day or two. They were, I know, thinking it over, and it looks like they are going to go with the rematch with Dog Bay. Magdaleno is going to take a fight in between now as well, and that's probably good for him since he did get stopped by Dog Bay, and he had been off a year before that. But I like that rematch. It's tough to reverse a knockout loss in a rematch and make a call that the guy's going to do it. But I think Magdaleno can do that. He's a really good fighter. He was off for a year before Dog Bay, and he almost had him out in the first round. But then, Dog Bay, to his credit, came back. But I just got a feeling that a Magdaleno who knows what he's in for and is a little better prepared might be able to turn that around. I could be wrong, but that's my gut feeling. I'd like to see that. I just hope Top Rank is creative where they keep that on ESPN regular and it doesn't go to ESPN Plus, because I think that rematch should be a real good fight. The first one was one of the best fights of the year, and let's put a fight like that on regular ESPN. Give it a little build up going in, since the first one was such a good fight, and get a nice rating on that. That's what we need. Let's not have that somehow fall to ESPN Plus.
All right, then we go to main event. We got Raimundo Beltran, Ray Beltran. If you guys didn't know this, he's trying to get a green card, but he is.
Is that the story? Is that the rumor?
It's just breaking news to me, and he'll be fighting Jose Pedraza. I think Pedraza beats him. I think Beltran's getting old. The story of Beltran to me is getting old. I find it amazing that nobody ever brings up his PED use, Jeremiah.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how, if you're a nice guy, all of a sudden PED use it just kind of gets swept under the rug, and it happens frequently. I mean, you look at how much it's brought up with certain people and how much it's just swept on the rug with others. I mean, Ray Beltran, yeah, I've heard he's a nice guy, and all the story that they've been telling for, like the last 17 fights or so. I mean, yeah, okay, I get it. It's meant to tug on your heartstrings, but it's one of those things that it's just a little tiresome. Again, I don't have anything against the guy, but he did use PEDs. I mean, it's not like the guy's walking around with a halo above his head, and you could see, and actually after the PED use, he hasn't exactly been lighting it up. And when he was on PEDs, he looked better. I mean, in his case, I think they did do something significant, though, of course, I still think PEDs contribute, a minor bit to, your overall doings in the sport. But, yeah, I mean, it's one of those things. I mean, Beltran, he looks good and whatnot. And, originally he was supposed to fight Roman Endrieve, who would have been a softer touch. But I think Bob Arum saw an opening here. He just signed Jose Pedraza, and so he can keep this in-house. And, whoever wins, he gets to pair him with Vasyl Lomachenko. I really don't have any doubt at all that whoever wins this fight will fight Vasyl Lomachenko.
Yeah, and I think Beltran should be encouraged to take PEDs if he beats Pedraza and has to fight Lomachenko next.
Yeah, they might as well write it into his contract that he can come to the ring with a needle in his jugular. because it's bad. It really is. I mean, Beltran, say what you want about his personality. In terms of skills, the guy is not even on the same planet as Vasyl Lomachenko, and that's just going to be a one-sided, butt whipping. Even with Pedraza. Pedraza is actually a guy that I like stylistically. I think he's a good fighter.
The fight? Are you with me or am I nuts? I think Pedraza wins the fight.
No, I think Pedraza wins the fight too. I think, looking at Beltran's struggles in recent years, I mean, he had trouble finding Brian Vasquez, who is a slick guy, but who's been moving up and has been inactive. So he had trouble finding Vasquez. He was caught quite a bit against Vasquez too, who isn't a particular good puncher, but he is sort of accurate. And then he goes, in a close one against who was Paulus Moses. It just does. For me, the signs are there. I think Pedraza, even though he got shellacked by Gervonta Davis, I still think that he's good enough. He's more versatile. He's more versatile than Beltran. He hits hard enough. I think he's going to outbox the guy. I think it'll be a decision. And again, then you get Lomachenko.
Yeah, well, that won't work out well. John, what's your take?
My take is that the positive of this fight is have to disagree with our friend Thomas Treiber a little bit. Top Rank won't put their good guys in house against each other enough. They like to go in house, but they don't like to go with that many 50-50 matchups. They're doing it here, and that's good because they've got the ESPN deal, so it's really important for American boxing with the potential exposure. And when PBC's on, same thing. You gotta put some competitive fights on. So Beltran and Pedraza, the odds makers got it just about 50-50 right now. Some of them have Beltran a slight favorite, but some of them that's come in now, some of the sites have it just dead even. So that's good. That's what you want. It's a good stylistic matchup. Beltran's a puncher and Pedraza's kind of Pedraza's more of a skilled boxer type. So close. I see it the way you guys do in the sense that Beltran, he hasn't looked good in his last two. He hasn't looked good against Moses. He hasn't looked good against Vasquez. He was looking great before that for his age. I mean, he was looking really, really good for, against Marcelo, against Menard. He looked really good. I mean, he looked rejuvenated, punching with a lot of power. But he hasn't looked as good in his last two. And, Pedraza, 39, Beltran's 37. 37's old for a lightweight. It should still be a pretty good fight. I'm kind of looking forward to this one because, again, of the even nature of the matchup. But Pedraza, with his skills and age, I think he should have enough to eke out a decision, but should be a pretty competitive fight. One thing that jumps at me about this one, and they're talking about Lomachenko for the winner, is, Lomachenko and Garcia are in a league of their own. And then, you had Linares just gave Lomachenko a surprisingly tough fight. So some people might put him up there. He's not up there with Lomachenko and Garcia. And then, even though technically he's at 130 pounds, let's say, it doesn't really matter. You got Gervonta Davis. I would put him up there, just a little, he's not with Lomachenko and Garcia, but he brings enough attributes to the table that, you'd be interested in seeing him fight one of those top guys that would capture your interest. Why I'm saying that is that, whoever wins this fight Saturday night, Beltran or Pedraza, they're just not even at the level of those guys. Even when you get past Lomachenko and Garcia, Davis already blew away Pedraza. Linares has got too much boxing skill for a Beltran. And, Tank Davis has got too much for a Beltran. He'd just have a million shots on him before Beltran knew what to do, even though Beltran's a tough guy. Point is, these two guys are just not even on the level of some of the top guys that would be available in that weight area. So to put the winner against a Lomachenko to get massacred before the end of the year on national TV on ESPN, or if they throw it on the ESPN Plus, no one needs that. Lomachenko doesn't even need that for a tune-up. So just wish there was something out there, a little more creativity of something we could get. And it's the problem when you put alphabet belts on things because, WBO does whatever Top Rank wants, and then the justification will be, oh, well, Lomachenko wants to pick up a WBA belt, and all the fans that are blinded by alphabet nonsense will say, oh, Lomachenko needs to pick up this WBO strap. No, really, he doesn't. But
yeah, they'll say it's a title unification fight.
right. That's what I don't want to hear.
Well,
for 2 months
it's stupid.
after.
Well, you know what I'd like to see them do is bring you're not going to get the Gervonta Davis fight with Lomachenko yet, but why not bring Miguel Burchelt up? I mean, he's at 130. He could make 135 just fine. I know Bob Arum and Burchelt's promoter are in good graces. I mean, you could do that. I mean, I still think Lomachenko's going to whip him, but it's better than Pedraza or Beltran.
I agree 100%. That's the kind of thing I'd rather see. You also got
to remember this, though, Jeremiah. You think that Lomachenko could whip Jesus, so.
Well, whatever my feelings on Lomachenko are, I don't think there are many people who are going to disagree that he'd whip Burchelt and many of these other guys. Hey, man, I think the guy's good, okay? But really what we all want is we want the Garcia Lomachenko fight, and maybe Lomachenko's putting pressure on him. I saw Bob Arum recently say, hey, I'm going to make the fights, the big money fights. And there was a reference to Lomachenko there. So I'm hoping that they can bend over backwards, do what they have to, and make him and make Lomachenko and make Garcia. That's really the fight that we just want.
All right.
Another good thing, another thought on that line, because I think we are doing a good job of thinking of ideas, while we're giving the solutions. Let's say Jeremiah made a good suggestion. Let's say you were going to have Lomachenko Burchelt for Lomachenko's lightweight title. You don't need the WBO thing. Then you just had Jason Sosa pick up a win on the top-ranked card on Saturday night. Put Jason Sosa in with the winner of Pedraza and Beltran. That would be a good action fight that would be interesting.
Yeah, but
make that the undercard fight.
Don't you think maybe it'd be better if they just fed him to Lomachenko so we don't have to call one of those two guys a champion anymore?
Well, just forget the belt part.
That's a good point, John.
I mean, come on, John.
We
got to listen. Then we got to see Jason Sosa become champion again, and then what it ends up is we get Lomachenko Sosa 2, which I guarantee you Jason Sosa doesn't even want.
No, I'm just saying forget about the alphabet. I don't care about the alphabet belt part. I'm just looking at these as like those are guys on a level that should be fighting each other. It's like, lightweight contenders in the bottom half of the top 10 fighting each other. That's, an even matchup instead of, putting one of these guys in with Lomachenko and Burchelt has a higher talent level. Let's at least see what he could do. It might be, instead of the kind of guys he's been fighting, it might be more interesting. But then you have yourself a good card with some better action and entertainment instead of, a massacre like Lomachenko against the winner of Pedraza and Beltran, which nobody needs to see.
All right, guys. You guys want to talk a little Fury Wilder? Jeremiah?
Well, I think the promotion
the
should be good.
I think the promotion will be good. I think the fight will be terrible, but I think the promotion will be great. It'll be exciting. Tyson Fury will say some stupid stuff. Deontay Wilder will, want to kill him. And in the end, to me, this is two average heavyweights, but they are two of the 3 or 4 best right now. So I guess we got to see it. I'm not extremely excited about it. I am not extremely not excited about it because I do think stylistically it's a really interesting matchup. And I think the people that write Tyson Fury off forget that I think Tyson Fury is the kind of guy that in his life has always done just enough to win. And I think if you're challenged him, he may be better. And I still think with Wilder, I think back to those 4 or 5 rounds with Luis Ortiz, Jeremiah, where until Ortiz got tired, Wilder damn near ran backwards the one time to get away from him. And I think this is going to be two guys staring at each other. And if it becomes that, I like Fury's chances.
Yeah, the feeling for me is that Fury can lull him to sleep a little bit if he wants to. I mean, if he turns southpaw, we saw how tentative Wilder was with the jab against Luis Ortiz. He looked more awkward than usual in that regard. And I do think part of it is going to be what Tyson Fury brings in terms of the power department. I actually think Fury is a decent puncher. I just don't think he likes to sit down on his punches. I think he's content, outworking you or just, jabbing, tossing the 1-2, stuff like that. I just think he doesn't mind boxing and earning a decision. But I do think, again, I do think that he has better power than he's kind of led on to believe. I think if he sits down on his shots, he's not a bad puncher. But yeah, I think that's how it goes. I mean, I think Fury is just going to turn southpaw, lull him to sleep. He's got the longer jab. Technically, he's a bit better. And he's just going to jab and outwork him. And Wilder's going to try to find a home for the right hand. And Fury's a slick guy for a heavyweight. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to for me is can Wilder find a home for the right hand? And against a big slick guy like Fury, who's going to be conscious of the fact, and if he's not conscious of the fact, his boxing IQ isn't very high. But yeah, I think a southpaw jabbing constantly, using his reach, waiting for the right hand. For me, I'm favoring Fury in the early going. And I just don't think Wilder is creative enough to get through that defense or work hard enough to get through the defense.
All right, John.
Well, I think what'll happen is that I think that the danger for Wilder is if, and usually I think this is overrated, but I don't think it's overrated in this fight. If Fury does fight southpaw early, Wilder had trouble figuring that out in the first half of the fight against Ortiz. Then he started finding out some answers. He got caught himself, but he was able to rebound and take out Ortiz. I think that Deontay Wilder will have the desire to get after Tyson Fury, but I do think that if Fury is southpaw and just leaning back, I think that it's possible that it will take Wilder some rounds to start getting to him more. But I think that Fury against a guy that has the offense that Wilder does, I think Fury's offense is going to shrivel up to nothingness in this fight. He had no offense against a zombified old Klitschko. He was barely throwing anything. I think against the much younger, faster, more aggressive Deontay Wilder, Wilder's more willing to take chances to try to put hurt on you. I think that Tyson Fury is going to be in a very, very big safety first mode. And I think at 6'9", he leans back. He uses his height, to try to get away. Of course, Klitschko is very tall, but Wilder's 6'7". So, Fury's not going to have the height advantage that he usually has against most fighters. And, Wilder will be coming after him. And I think Wilder will start to break through on Fury. And I think Fury's just not going to be offering any offense. And then I think Wilder, he'll either be continuing to bank rounds, but I think late in the fight, he's going to start getting the Fury, and he might have very well have a chance to get him out of there.
Yeah, but if Fury doesn't get tired, do you think Wilder's smart enough to figure out how to get to him?
I think later in the fight he will. I think he will because he'll be keeping after him. I just don't think Fury will be offering the offense.
I don't think Wilder's very smart. I mean, and it's not just because he went there to watch and see how Tyson Fury's feet work was, but it's just the fact that I think Ortiz got tired. Ortiz buzzed him. I'm not sold that Ortiz is that great because who's Ortiz ever beat, but. And the same thing goes for pretty much every heavyweight, since none of them are that good. But when I look at this, I just think that Fury can lull you to sleep. And you can say a zombified Klitschko, maybe he was zombified because he didn't know how to go about getting to him. And the thing is this, if you don't know how to do it and you get desperate, you leave yourself open. And I think the other question is this. Vladimir Klitschko allowed Tyson Fury to fight in a defensive shell because he really didn't throw any punches. If Tyson Fury, or if Deontay Wilder comes after Tyson Fury, I think that's going to force Fury to either fight or get knocked out. So I think the big question there is, there's two questions. Number one, can Fury hit hard enough to dent Wilder? And number two, does Wilder hit hard enough to hurt Fury?
I think Wilder definitely hits hard enough to. I think Wilder definitely hits hard enough to hurt Fury. Fury was down on the canvas against Steve Cunningham, so
yeah.
I think that, and you can be knocked down as heavyweights even as you're fighting Steve Cunningham, but I think that. I think Wilder can hurt him. I think Fury, if he's going to beat Wilder, he's going to have to come up with more offense than he even had against Vladimir Klitschko.
That's what I'm saying, but I think he's going to have to, because Wilder at some point is going to get desperate and charge him. Because I don't think Wilder can win a decision against him, because Wilder technically is not as good as Fury.
I think Wilder can just on
he's an amateur.
On more aggression, and he's got a good jab as well. He can. Unless Fury troubles him with the southpaw style, I think that Wilder's going to be able to, get his jab in some. But Wilder did have trouble figuring out the southpaw style with Ortiz. He had some trouble even with it with Spielka. So that's something that you can't ignore going into this fight. And Fury does have some boxing skills, and Fury's got some hand speed. So it's not that Fury doesn't have any speed, but Wilder's been in real good shape for recent fights. And when he comes in good shape like that, and he's got the quickness, to go with his power and really the stamina when he comes in good shape like that, I think he's a tough package for people to deal with.
Well, neither one of them's ever lost. Jeremiah, your take?
Yeah, no, that's true. Neither one has ever lost. There's my opinion.
I was just going to let you respond to anything that I said or that John said.
Yeah, no, well, I think Wilder's best bet is, he's a smaller guy, so the assumption is that his stamina would be superior. So, if I was Wilder, I would be in attack mode as often as I could, and see how that works out for me. But again, I think it's due to Wilder's lack of amateur experience that he has trouble with southpaws, but it's also a lack of just natural ability that he can't throw a correct left hook. And in my part, and it's not for me. When you look at the Luis Ortiz fight, it's not so much that Wilder was able to outthink him, because Ortiz has the Cuban boxing skills where he'll lull you to sleep with that lazy right hand. He'll bait you into something and then he'll counter, or he'll throw an accurate straight shot and get you that way. It wasn't as if Wilder figured that out so much as he was setting traps of his own, and he was throwing hooks or anything. I mean, it seemed like a pretty basic strategy against a left-hander where he was relying a lot on his straight right hand. And, Luis Ortiz is a bit older, and he faded a little bit. But you got to give Wilder credit for the win, of course. But it's one of those things, in my opinion, it's like, wow, Fury, to me, has more diversity in his game than Luis Ortiz does. So I'm trying to think to myself how Wilder would go about opening him up, other than, just throwing the 1-2s, which is his bread and butter, which really, it's one of those things that Wilder does have damn good power, but it also seems like things have to be right for him really to spark somebody out. He's got to throw the punch correctly, and that's not always the case. I mean, he throws sloppy submarine punches from time to time, and he throws them from goofy angles and gives up his power by getting off his back foot and all sorts of stuff. And I just think when you have a guy like Wilder, who, imagine he's fighting a southpaw like Luis Ortiz, but a bit more active in his jab output. I'm thinking if Wilder cannot crack the code in the first 4, 5, 6 rounds, and he's got to be a bit more desperate, is he really going to figure it all out and do something right? Is he going to get creative in his approach to open Fury up? And I don't see that. I don't really see Wilder necessarily throwing shots from the submarine angle and all sorts of other places as being creative. I see it more as just trying to, he's just doing things. He's just reacting. He's not really setting a guy up. So I don't know. It's really just the aggressive approach for Wilder that I think is his best bet. But again, even though Deontay Wilder is taller, I mean, he's how much taller than Vladimir Klitschko? What, an inch? 2 inches?
Yeah. And really, when Wilder and Fury stood together, they looked about the same height.
Well, and again, even though they're about the same, I mean, Wilder hasn't fought very many real tall guys like himself. I think Duhaupas was pretty close, but Fury still has the longer reach. That's kind of where I'm getting at. It's going to be tougher to jab up at a guy. You always exert more energy doing that, but Fury to me has a better sense of distance than Wilder does, and that's the key is his jab. I mean, if he stays active with it, he can switch stances and confuse him a little bit more, and especially utilize the southpaw position. I just think Fury holds the advantage here. But whoever wins, of course, when you're talking about Mike, when you're talking about how they both had grins on their faces and they didn't seem like they hated each other all that much, I actually think they're both happy because they swept they swept the rug from out of the underneath Eddie Hearn, who was acting as if he had some sort of monopoly on the heavyweight division with Anthony Joshua.
He did until Tyson Fury came back.
Exactly, and I think they're both happy about that. I don't think it's all about them liking each other. I just think it's this good feeling of pulling one over on a guy. And if Deontay Wilder comes through this, whoever comes through this, they're going to demand a significant portion of the purse from Anthony Joshua that they couldn't have before.
Yeah,
I wanted to add on to that point Jeremiah made, because I know Jeremiah and I was looking at it a little differently, and I understand that, but I think this is the way to look at it, at least to me. And I've been pleasantly surprised over the last week how much you see in Twitter and social media where there are knowledgeable fans and followers who are looking at it this way, which is, even if Tyson Fury could not be really considered to still be the lineal champ after the PED test and the time he laid off, he was the last one to win the lineal title in the ring. He's back 2 fights now. Wilder, the clear number 2 guy, barely behind Joshua, just barely. These two fighting, Fury being the last guy to win it in the ring, the winner of this fight, I think is the guy. I mean, I think Joshua and Hearn outsmarted themselves. I think the winner of this fight is the guy. And not only have they lost some bargaining power, they might have lost even more bargaining power than they even thought they were losing, because I think with the promotional skills of a Fury and, if you got a Deontay Wilder who's coming off, say, knockout wins over Luis Ortiz and Tyson Fury, and he comes up with a big win in the United States like that in Vegas, and people are feeling like, hey, heavyweight boxing in the United States is back. The U.S. still drives the biggest dollars. He's going to put his lineal claim out there. If Fury says, hey, I beat the guy that was barely number 2, I was the last one to win it in the ring and took it from Klitschko, he's got a good claim there. I think that Joshua and Hearn are going to have to grab some momentum back.
Jeremiah?
Yeah, I do think that's interesting, actually, because and again, it's boxing, so it depends on the context of when, so imagining if Deontay Wilder goes out there, and so this is a thing, and this is the poor state of boxing, and it sucks because we got to read so much into these. It becomes monotonous, to be honest with you. But even though Tyson Fury, past tense, in my opinion, and the opinion of a number of others, was the lineal heavyweight champion, we don't really even know how good Tyson Fury is. We don't know what the ceiling is. I was listening to Michael Montero today, his new TNC, and he was talking about how he's going to come out with a rant video about how Vladimir Klitschko was not in the best shape of his life against Tyson Fury, and part of that is attributed to his recent breakup with his girlfriend and some other stuff. I don't know. We'll wait for the video to come out. But it's like we look at Tyson Fury, and he's got one real good win, and we still don't know exactly how good he is. So if Wilder goes out there and somehow blasts him out, a lot of people are going to say to themselves, and not undeservedly so, is how good was Tyson Fury? But of course, there's still going to be debate, even if Tyson Fury loses to Deontay Wilder in a close decision or whatnot. I mean, you look at the 1 and 2 guys, Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder right now. If Wilder beats Fury and Joshua beats Povetkin, does Wilder then deserve to be the number 1 heavyweight over Tyson or over Anthony Joshua? That's going to be a big debate for all of us as well. And it's like, Tyson Fury, depending on how good he looks. I mean, right now, Transnational just put him in the top 10. I know the Ring had put him in the top 10 after his first fight back. But, Tyson Fury currently is not as highly rated as Alexander Povetkin is. So, it's that mix of boxing politics which makes it so damn confusing.
I can give you my take on this. I think if Joshua beats Povetkin, to me that's worth more than beating Fury. I know that I just said that I thought Fury would beat Wilder, but I think the reason I think Fury beats Wilder is more of a styles thing than anything else. I don't think Tyson Fury is very good. He doesn't throw enough punches. He's an entertaining guy. I hope he wins. I hope he beats everybody. I think he's great for boxing. Deontay Wilder, if he comes out and starches him in a round, is that a big win because of the questions we have? I think the big win for Wilder would be if it is actually a great fight and he knocks him out in the 9th or 10th round after going to war with him, and then everybody says Fury was that good. Because right now, I know it looks like this could be for the real title, but if Fury goes out and gets starched in a round, everybody's going to say, well, he was off 2.5 years. He hadn't beaten anybody since he fought Klitschko. That fight was boring as hell. So in the end, the only way this gets settled is if you've got Joshua against Fury or Joshua against Wilder. We could sit here and say, well, this is the number 2 guy and a number 3 guy. It doesn't matter because you know who the top 2 guys are. The top 2 guys are going to be the 2 guys that come out of these 2 fights. I mean, to me, this is your World Boxing Super Series. You've got 4 of what I think are the top 5 or 6 guys out there. They're going to fight each other. The winners need to fight each other. Then you have a champion. I don't think that we can pull a Ring magazine here like they did at 168 and wish and hope a world champion. Tyson Fury's been out for almost 3 years. He doesn't deserve to be called the world champion. Deontay Wilder beat Luis Ortiz. Anthony Joshua beat an old Vladimir Klitschko. In the end, the only way we can get a real champion is if the winner of these 2 fights fight each other, we get a clear champion then. So I don't think that it does us any good to sit there and think, well, the real champions who wins Joshua Povetkin or the real champions who wins Wilder or Fury. We just have to wait and see. Everybody has to be patient, let it play out, and hopefully a year from now, we'll know who the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world is.
Right, I agree with that. I mean,
and it'll be Manuel Char because I think someday he's going to beat Fresakendo.
Oh yeah, he's going to upset Okendo, and then he's going to upset the winner of this, this fake.
Is any heavyweight bad enough to get upset a 55-year-old Fresakendo or however old he is? Is anybody going to be an underdog to Fresakendo? Does Fresakendo still exist? Has anybody seen him? I haven't.
Is he still alive?
I don't know. But
he hasn't fought for 4 years or something like that.
Has he fought that recently? I thought the last time I saw him was Boxing After Dark in 2000 against James Toney or something. But and yet he's still fighting for a title, maybe, or he'll get step-aside money. But really, I don't think we can conjecture this because I think a lot of this, John, will come out into how competitive a fight it is. And the more competitive it is, the better it is for these 2 guys.
Well, nothing I'm saying should be taken as that we should, that we don't want the winner of these fights like you laid it out, Mike, which is true, to fight each other. But
there's so many questions about all of these guys that you just kind of got to let it play out.
Yeah, funny enough, I think Povetkin is actually the most he's one of the few proven guys in an era of many unprovens. But you're right, Mike. I think, whether you want to claim Fury as lineal or not, I don't, me and Transnational, we don't, after 35 Twitter retirements and, drug use, both recreational and performance enhancing. And, not only that is inactivity. Nobody is going to, there's no concrete feeling either way until, like you said, Mike, the winner of Povetkin and Joshua fight and the winner of Fury and Wilder fight. That's pretty much all there is to it.
Yeah, and I think both of these fights are interesting. I think Povetkin, if he was 27 years old, would probably just clean all three of them out, but he's not. And I would favor Joshua against Povetkin, but I would not be surprised if Povetkin won. And with Fury Wilder, there is nothing that could possibly happen in that fight that would shock me.
A lot could happen there. Joshua may be under slightly more pressure to look better now against Povetkin than he would have been before Fury and Wilder was signed. Now, it's not going to ultimately change who he's going to fight, but there is some marketability for the reasons we've discussed now. You get Fury and Wilder are going to take the play away, and the winner of that's going to be in a good position if they look halfway decent.
Yeah, unless it's a replay of Klitschko and Fury. And then
if it's a replay of Klitschko and Fury, that could hurt.
That could. But they may not make any money then.
Yeah, that could hurt them. That's the one scenario that could hurt them, and it's not an impossible scenario with a 6'9" guy fighting a 6'7" guy. That could definitely get awkward. So that potential's there, but if one of them looks good, they're going to take a lot of the play away from Joshua. Of course, then, if Joshua on September 22nd, if he takes Povetkin out in a couple of rounds or something like that, and then Fury and Wilder don't look good, maybe he's going to see his a little playback. But when you talk about Povetkin fighting Joshua, and we go with what you have to go with when somebody's a big underdog, does Povetkin have a chance? Yes, he has a chance. It's not one of those ones where you're going to go into that fight, and even though Joshua's a minus 900, I'm not going to say Povetkin has no chance. It's not one of those fights. So he has a chance. I'm going to pick Joshua. Yeah, I'm picking Joshua, but it's not a no-hoper situation.
Jeremiah?
I agree. I agree.
Come on, you got to be more prepared.
Well, I mean, typically you don't carry on heavyweight conversations this long, Mike. So I was just expecting you to.
I've been extremely quiet through the entire heavyweight conversation. I just wanted to bring that up. That's true. Yeah, no. Typically you cut the ribbon before this, but no, I'm on board with Mike. I mean, I like Povetkin. I mean, he's had some unfortunate incidences as well, but it's one of those things, like, he actually doesn't seem like a bad guy. People talk about Ray Beltran and, he's a nice guy and they sweep it on the rug and whatnot. Povetkin doesn't seem like a bad guy. Yes,
I mean, he has that.
If you saw Rocky IV and Ivan Drago, that's why nobody likes Alexander Povetkin.
I think it is, man, because he kind of has that stoicism when he goes into the ring, where he's not.
Break you.
Yeah, he does, right? And
Drago only tested positive for PEDs once.
But they only checked him once.
Yeah, they only checked.
If you remember, I think Drago they injected as a infant also. So.
Yeah, he was like a designer baby. I mean, they pretty much molded and shaped him from the beginning. No, Povetkin. I actually wish a guy like Povetkin, a big skilled guy like him would assume the role of like an Ivan Drago, where he's spitting on American flags and rubbing his feet on them, and just using cheesy lines like that, like, "Oh, I must break you." I'd love to see that. I actually
could make a ton of money.
I know. Well, that would, but I think genuinely he is a nice guy. That's why you don't see. I mean, Povetkin is almost never in. I can never remember where he's in a war of words with anybody. And with Joshua's kind of passive personality.
He doesn't speak English, really, does he?
No, but I mean, he could still get a translator. He could learn a little bit.
It's not the same, when you got to have somebody translate. I'm going to kick your effing ass or something.
No, that's true, but he could learn.
You know what? If Mike Tyson said, "I'm going to eat your children" to Lennox Lewis in Spanish, it would not have had the same effect.
No, right. But Povetkin could learn enough English to say, "Hey, I must break you." That would be good enough.
Because that's all Ivan Drago knew, I think.
Yeah, but no, it's one of those things. Like Povetkin he's a skilled guy, even at 37. Again, I like his all around ability. He's one of the few guys I think is nuanced and doesn't have to rely on his size as much as these other guys. But I mean, in my lifetime, I've seen Lennox Lewis knocked off by Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. I've seen Vladimir Klitschko beaten by Lamont Brewster and Corey Sanders. And it's not far-fetched at all, to see Povetkin win. And part of me, just because of the state of boxing, and I'm not really that big of a fan of heavyweights, part of me would think it's humorous to watch Povetkin knock Joshua off and then watch Fury knock Wilder off. Yeah, that would kind of, I don't know, bring a smile on my face.
Both promoters.
Exactly.
But, all right, guys, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up since obviously Jeremiah thinks that I've let this conversation carry on too long. I want to thank John and Jeremiah for coming on the show. And we had Thomas Treiber on. It seems like it was last week now. It was so long ago.
Yeah, that was Monday that we had him on, right?
Yeah.
Today's
as always, we want
today's
to thank,
Wednesday.
As always, we want to thank Thomas for the intro he did for the Inside Boxing Weekly show. Love to have him on. Look forward to having him on after the October 6 fights. Maybe before that even, because I don't know if we've talked to you about it yet, John, but me and Jeremiah were thinking about the week of Canelo Golovkin 2. Maybe we'll just do a nightly show and have a different guest on each night.
Yeah, sounds like that'll be a good week for it. I'm hoping that as we get close to that fight, that we're going to get enough build-up and interest to get some buzz going.
Did you see today? It's exciting because the referee is going to be Benny Estevez, and I think he was with the Miami Sound Machine back in the 80s.
He is from the great state of New Jersey, I can say that.
Oh, wow.
Great state.
That may have been Gloria Estevez, and there's nothing.
You have your air quotations up there, John?
Yeah. New Jersey in the house. Benji Estevez. And Steve Weisfeld and Judge Steve Weisfeld is a New Jersey lawyer. I have been at CLEs with Steve Weisfeld very early in my career.
All right. Well, maybe
he has been named one of the three judges. So the problem is he had Foreman. Steve's been a good judge, but the problem is he had Foreman Briggs for Briggs. So.
Well, we all make mistakes.
Like all
when
judges,
we're young.
Capable of bad night. Yeah, that was a long time ago, though.
Yeah, but it set up Shannon Briggs to be the lineal heavyweight champion of the world. So thanks a lot, Steve.
Yeah, I try to forget that.
Hey, but you know what? Briggs-Foreman was a really good fight. Foreman did win it, but then Briggs did put up a good showing for like 3 or 4 rounds before Lennox Lewis destroyed him. There's been worse.
He was just swinging wild. No, there was some excitement for some moments.
But, all right, guys, we're going to wrap the show up. I want to remind everybody you can hear all of our shows on iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spotify, Spreaker, Stitcher. Wherever you find sports podcasts, you'll find The Grueling Truth. I want to thank, once again, Thomas Treiber, Thomas is one of my favorite guests. And you guys may not have known this, but me and Steve Risley had him on Survive in Advance, which you can hear at noon, or right around noon every day. And he actually was the ring announcer for an episode of The Kardashians.
Yeah, I listened to that episode, and Steve was oddly. I hope you're listening, Steve. But Steve was oddly giddy about that because I remember he was saying that it was a guilty pleasure.
Show.
Yeah, it was guilty. I thought he said it was guilty pleasure of his family's, but I'm not into it. You know, a number of Armenian broads talking a bunch of dumb crap. I'm not into it, but it was fun listening to Steve get giddy about it. You know, it's like he had been waiting the whole show to ask that question.
He was, because he called me like 10 minutes before we did the show, because he didn't know anything about boxing, and he found this out, and he was all excited. He said, "I'm going to ask this as the last question." So, what the hell? He had fun with it, and Thomas was a great guest on there, as he always is with us. So, we're going to go ahead and wrap the show up for Thomas Treiber, John Einreinhofer, Jeremiah Priesser. I'm Mike Goodpaster. You've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.